a big one. Big one. That one is working. We should do 6 actually.
Things like that have a tendency to linger, don't they?
I'm sorry?
Things like that have a tendency to linger.
Yes, they do. Unless anyone gets behind it. We can do it. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Gopi Jana take the mic off, that's not the right stand. The right stand is over there. Yamunatira 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 Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Jai Mr. Prabhu Acharya. Ashtotar to Sri Srimad, the Divine Grace. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parujika Acharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering devotional service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Before we begin, Abhidharma Prabhu, can you take these? Put them out. Thank you. On this 11th day of May 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 3, the status quo, chapter 22, the marriage of Karnama Muni and Devahuti, text number 37. Sharira Manasadivya Vayase Chamanusha Bhautakashtakatang Klesha Badhante Harisangshrayam Sharira Manasadivya Vayase Chichamanusha Bhautikashtakatang Klesha Badhante Harisangshrayam Sharira Manasadivya Vayase ye chamanusha Bhautikashtakatang klesha Badhante Harisangshrayam Sharira Manasadivya Vayase chamanusha Bhautikash-chakatam klesha Badhante harisangshrayam
Sharira Manasadivya
Sharira Manasadivya
Vayase chamanusha
Vayase chamanusha
Bhautikash-chakatam klesha
Bhautikash-chakatam klesha
Badhante harisamshrayam
Badhante harisangshrayam
Sharira Manasadivya
Sharira Manasadivya
Vayase chamanusha
Vayase chamanusha Bhautikash-chakatam klesha Badhante harisangshrayam Shariraha pertaining to the body Manasaha pertaining to the mind Divyaha pertaining to supernatural powers or demigods Vayase Ovidura Ye those.
those.
Cha,
Cha,
and.
and.
Manushaha,
Manushaha,
pertaining to other men.
pertaining to other men.
Bhautikaha,
Bhautikaha,
pertaining to other living beings.
pertaining to other living beings.
Cha,
Cha,
and.
and.
Katam,
Katam,
how.
how.
Kleshaha,
Kleshaha,
miseries.
miseries.
Bhadante,
Bhadante,
can trouble.
and trouble.
Harisamshayam,
Hari samshayam,
one who has taken shelter of Lord Krishna.
one who has taken shelter of Lord Krishna.
Translation. Therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, and other men and living creatures? Purport. Every living entity within this material world is always afflicted by some kind of miseries, pertaining either to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances. Distresses due to cold in winter and severe heat in summer always inflict miseries on the living entities in this material world. But one who has completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in Krishna consciousness is in the transcendental stage. He is not disturbed by any miseries, either due to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances of summer and winter. He is transcendental to all these miseries. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So we've just heard the glories of Swayambhuva Manu and how after he gave his daughter to Kardama Muni, returned home, he enjoyed the pleasures that are due someone who's the emperor of the universe. But he did so in a Krishna conscious way, and so he wasn't affected by it. There was no a real attachment created and no karma created. And then, although it doesn't mention this, it mentions that he lived the rest of his life, which was, what did you think? 306 million odd years. Always thinking of Vasudeva. Now, and this is the last verse. Thus he transcended the three destinations. Now, the three destinations are different, described in the Bhagavad Gita. The mode of nature that's predominant when you leave your body, that will determine where you go or what your next situation will be. If you leave in the mode of goodness, it's very rare. Today you go up. Udvam gachanti sattvastha, madhye tishtamti rajasa. If you're in predominantly the mode of passion, you stay on this plane to continue your fruit of acts. And if you're situated mostly in the mode of ignorance, you go downward. How far you go downward, what exactly the destination is not mentioned, but Prabhupada says, well, it's the animal species. Not eternally, but it's a long road back up to the human form of life. So he transcended all those. So he was on the transcendental platform. And then in the present verse, it describes that he wasn't suffering any of the classic threefold miseries. Now, there's a bigger list here, but it's basically within those classic threefold miseries. Adhyatmic, adibhautic, and adidaivik. Adhyatmic are the miseries pertaining to the body and mind. Those are mentioned in the beginning of this verse, Shadira Manasa. Divya refers to adidaivik, natural disturbances, like earthquakes or hurricanes, etc. And Manusha Bhautikas, other men or other living beings in general, those are the adibhautic, numerous. The insects, the germs, other people, as I like to quote when this comes up. I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre who wrote this play called No Exit. Very depressing. I read it when I was a kid. Existentialist, you know.
So share with us.
Well, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything of the play except one line, which is his statement was, "Hell is other people." Can you imagine? Meaning that, you know, if your mind is such that just being around other people is very difficult, especially if they're incompatible with you. I mean, we all experience that. It can be very difficult to be with others if you're not compatico, simpatico. What to speak of, opposing armies and all of these different things. So these three miseries are always, one or more of them, are always either inflicting their power on us, we're suffering, or they're threatening to. Like the adidaivic miseries. Isn't there like a whole industry of flood insurance, right? Or hurricane insurance in Miami? What to speak of, I don't know if you can even get earthquake insurance down here, right? These are all attempts to ward off the results of being afflicted with these adidaivic miseries. Okay, my house was destroyed in the earthquake, but I've got $100,000 from the insurance. I can build a new one, whatever. So this is what's going on. Health insurance to counteract the adidaivic miseries, huge industry, multi-trillion-dollar industry. And adibautic miseries, well, called the Defense Department. We build up every nation has it, every person has it. There's twice as many guns in America than there are people. Or more guns than people, I'm sure that, I read that. That means that people are thinking, I mean, some of those are for, committing crime, obviously, inflicting miseries on others, but most of them are at least titularly to try to defend yourself against criminals. So this is a major part of what it means to be in material life, is to try to ward off these miseries. Now, but here, the solution is here. The solution is right here in the Bhagavatam, in Krishna consciousness. Not that you're going to stop the earthquake or you're going to stop the disease, but after all, it's not the earthquake that you're really afraid of. It's the effect on your consciousness. That's what you're really afraid of. That's what really bothers you. If you're in this state here, Hari Samshayam, full shelter of Krishna, and we'll discuss what that means in a minute, then it says, how can there be any klesha? The klesha is a mental thing. The klesha isn't the earthquake or the war. The klesha is what happens in you, your reaction to it. Some people suffer more than others. If someone gets insulted on the internet, this is a major source of misery these days, right? Getting flamed or whatever they call it, especially amongst adolescent kids in high school. Isn't it like a major thing? So, but how many times did, devotees, I remember we're walking out, I remember this very distinctly, these things together. I'm walking back to the temple in Philadelphia, from the temple to where we live. We lived a mile from the temple in this house that was donated. And it was with another devotee, and we're walking along. I'm chanting Hare Krishna, he's chanting Hare Krishna. And then from somewhere to our right, we're on the right side of the street, somebody yells some kind of insult. I forget what it was. It was unpleasant. And I said, all right, I rolled my eyes, kept chanting. And this poor devotee, it cut him to the quick. You know what I mean? He couldn't take it. He got up, he started railing away. This devotee would rip your tongue out, What is this? I said, well, this isn't the way we're supposed to react. I mean, you walk around in these clothes chanting Hare Krishna, especially in those days. Nowadays, we become more accepted. I think just by the longevity, people, they like us. In those days, you would hear that a lot. I remember going on Harinam in Fort Lauderdale. That used to be the destination for the spring break. Thousands of kids would come down, And I think eventually they passed an ordinance that you couldn't drink, and then they didn't come down anymore. No public drinking. So we went out on Harinam from Miami. It's just a short drive. We go every year. So we're going up there, and these kids are drunk. They're mooning us. They're pouring beer down on us, like that. There's a Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, It didn't. You're taking shelter of the holy name, and it just doesn't bother you. It just really doesn't bother you. Now, whereas someone else, it could cause a fatal fight, someone insulting like that. So this is a very important point. This is not the goal of Krishna consciousness, to relieve all our miseries, but it is an important byproduct, and it's one that we can actually preach on. It's one that we can attract people to come to Krishna consciousness. And I think for myself, I know that was one of the main attractive features. Not even knowing it, any of the philosophy or what, but just walking into the temple, chanting Hare Krishna, being with the devotees, the atmosphere, the prasadam, it was a tremendous relief. It was a psychological. It's like walking into an oasis, from the desert. And I didn't know anything about anything, but it made me want to come back. And when I eventually learned about the philosophy and started chanting Hare Krishna, I was able to take that feeling outside the temple and cultivate it in your life. So there are so many verses that describe this factor, and I keep coming back to this because I studied it so much. We're coming up on this chapter, actually, chapter 25. It'll be a while. Well, not so long, but 22. The teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. And these 8 verses that I dubbed the Sadhu Sangashtaka. There happen to be 8 verses, and it's all about the importance of associating with devotees and what the result is. And so he tells his mother, first in Prasanga Madaram Pashamatmana Kaviya Vidu, that this strong attachment that everybody in the material world has for things of this world and people of this world and the money of this world and everything, that has to be transferred to the sadhus. The wise know that very same attachment, prasanga, sangha is attachment, prasanga is a strong attachment, needs to be transferred to the sadhus. And that opens the doors to liberation. Now the first installment of liberation is exactly this release of the attachments, because it's the attachments that keep us coming back. That and our karma. The unfulfilled desires that you have in your mind, everybody's dying with these. You build it, you lead say a normal life, and you get married, and you have kids, and you have some money, and you have some relatives, and you have your home, and you have this and that, and you have that. So you go on, and you get older and older. So the joy and the happiness that you got, and there is some material happiness, it may be flickering or not permanent, but it's there. That's in your memory bank. And inevitably, as you go on, toward the inevitable demise, you're losing the ability to enjoy that, or it's just gone. Those wonderful times you had with your children when they were young, and all these different things. This is what the old people want to remember. I remember with my own mother. We had all these scrapbooks, and that was one of the main things that was going on in those last years. Was reviewing, going back over. You remember this? She met her sisters, going back all these old things. So what does that do? That just fires up all those good times. Most people don't sit there and remember all the pain that was going on. They remember the things that were high points of positive emotional experience. So that just keeps those desires prominent in the mind, and there's always that lamentation in the heart, that sadness. Oh, I can't enjoy it anymore. How's it possible? It's gone, or your ability to enjoy is gone. You're getting old. So that's your mind, and when the body finally falls, the mind is still there. That's right there in the 15th chapter. And all those unfulfilled desires. All right, here's another chance. Wah, and then the baby comes out with all the desires, ready to go. And according to your karma, so it's very complicated. But those are the knots, those are the ropes in the heart that will keep you bound here for millions of births. So those knots or ropes have to be cut. So here he's saying, well, the cutting and the destroying of those attachments, that's the program of the impersonalists. Trying to repress, suppress, or somehow negate those desires. But that's unnatural. Because we are enjoying beings. We're part and parcel of Krishna, who is Anandamaya Vyasat. You know what Anandamaya means? Basically made of Ananda, or filled with Ananda. How many devotees, got the name Karunamayi or Karunamoy? It just simply means filled with compassion. So this is Anandamoy. Krishna is always blissful. Abhyasat means we can tell from his pastimes and from his life. Obviously. We're part and parcel. Mamai Vangsha Jiva Loka. So Krishna says, we're his Anksha. So that means we are naturally also filled with bliss. And our attempts to enjoy sense gratification are coming from that natural sense of wanting to enjoy. But that enjoyment in this material world causes suffering. The same Ladini Shakti, there's a verse which I can't recall right now, but the Ladini Shakti, which is Krishna's internal pleasure potency, personified as Srimati Radharani, which really is love personified, prema personified. Why is prema personified? It gives so much pleasure because it gives most of the pleasure to Krishna, and therefore you also get the premananda. It's very scientific. But now, unless we keep our focus on Krishna and pleasing Him, and therefore enjoying the reciprocation and the real premananda, that same Ladini Shakti, of which we have a minute part, we direct toward this material energy. It's called sense gratification. That produces misery. That's the source of all misery. Krishna says, the pleasures that come from the contact of the senses with the sense objects is the source of your miseries. Klesha, the word klesha is used. Plenty of klesha in this world. So, therefore, Kapila's practically first instruction is you have to redirect that Ladini Shakti, that attachment, to the sadhus. Why to the sadhus and not to Krishna? We don't know anything about Krishna. But the sadhus come, that's the whole point. Krishna sends them. He manifests as the sadhus. And who are they? He describes in 3 verses, the qualities. Because just like the deity, we can see them and serve them, we can hear them directly. And that personal relationship with the sadhu is the foundation of any advancement in devotional service. It's the guru. The guru is the sadhu. The guru is a heavy teacher. So that's the first thing. Then he says, well, that very logically, okay, suppose I believe it. I want to transfer it. Well, who's the sadhus? I have no idea. His mother is taking this role as you know. He actually, in one verse, he calls her a sadhvi, a female sadhu. You really what it means. But he's still instructing her, and she's taking the role of the supplicant, someone who doesn't know anything. So what's the next verse, you know? Famous verse, Tatikshava, Karunika, Suridak, Sarvadehina, Majata Shaktabak Shanta Sarabak Sarabhushan. These are the qualities of the sadhu. Tolerance. Where are you going to find tolerance out there? You know, everyone has to tolerate because you're forced to. But the sadhu tolerates for the higher purpose of for showing and for the ideal, and because he's always preaching. Preaching is a thankless task. You've got to tolerate it. Because people don't want Krishna consciousness. This is why they're here. I know. Or they think you're some kind of alien or some terrorist or who knows what they think. Right? People are totally ignorant. So you have to cut through all that. It's like a doctor dealing with a patient who's delirious, and he comes to give him an injection, and the patient thinks he's attacking him and throws a whatever at him, a flower pot. So the doctor, does he turn on his heel and walk out so this patient has no hope? No, he realizes he's delirious, so he finds some other way to give him the medicine. Doesn't give up on him. That's tolerance. Similarly, the sadhus, the gurus, the acharyas, they wander the earth tolerating all kinds of abuse in order to try to give the only medicine that will work for the material disease. So therefore, that's the second quote, Tatikshava Karunika. And Sudadak Sarvadehinam, the friend of every living being. Showing the real empathy. Why? Because every living being is part and parcel of Krishna. So if you love Krishna, you will love every living being. Now they may be mad and think of you as an enemy, or ignore you, or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you don't love them as spirit souls. Sometimes you have to avoid them in order to help others. You know, we learned that. Madhyama Adhikari does that. But the basic principle is you appreciate their relationship with Krishna. And then, Ajata Shatavat, no enmity toward others. Means the enemy is never born. Yudhishthira is known as that, Ajata Shatra. You have no enmity, because you see everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. And therefore, without any material desire, no enmity, Shanta, real peace alone can belong to someone like that. And Sadhava is defined as based by the scriptures. Now, if you notice, in those qualities, there's no mention of devotional service. How is that? Next verse. You have to read the card. Mayanannena bhavena bhaktim kurvanti evadham matkrite chakta karmanas chakta svajana bhavana. So, this is the key quality. Mayanannena bhavena bhaktim, devotional service to me that is undeviating. Mamchayo avyabhicharena. This comes up, ananya chetak satatam. Again and again in Bhagavad Gita. Ananya chetak means that your mind fixed on Krishna and devotional service to Krishna. And very determined, unflinching, dridham. And then he describes, matkrite tyakta karma, ready to give up any activity that's against devotional service. Matkrite tyakta karmanas. And even to give up his relationship with friends and family, if that's an impediment to his devotion. So he's defining the pure devotee. And then what does such a devotee do? And this brings us back to the present verse, how he's free of all klesha. He says, manashraya katamrishta shinvanti kadayanti cha tapanti vivadat tapa naitan mangata chetasa. So such a devotee is always hearing and chanting about me. And not just hearing and chanting, manash katamrishta means the very sweet, wonderful vibrations about me. Shrinvanti kadayanti, hearing and chanting. And therefore, tapanti vivadas tapa naitan. Therefore, all of these sufferings, here described as tapan, klesha is the same thing. Naitan, he doesn't suffer those. Because, and here's the key, madgata cetasa, his mind is gone to me. His mind is on me. And therefore, we see that the real key here is the depth of our absorption in thinking of Krishna. And that depth of absorption can only be there when all of the elements that we have at our disposal, not just the mind, but the intelligence and the senses, both active and knowledge acquiring, are engaged in Krishna's service, are linked to Krishna in yoga. And the motive has to be, to please Krishna. Just like I picked up the drum. I know that my drumming is not very pleasing to Krishna, unless there's no other drummer. Now there was another drummer. We were drumming together, and you dropped out. It's okay. But I figured, well, our drummer extraordinaire, Zachary, is otherwise engaged in the kitchen, I assume, and I was right. So therefore, I figured there was blind uncle, no uncle, I don't know. You can shut me up. Just tell me not to play at all. And I won't. I know at Bhajan Rhyme I would not pick it up. But it's something. So that's the only reason I picked it up, not because I think I'm a great drummer, obviously I'm not. So the idea is that when every moment of our life, every breath, is with that consciousness of, oh, I'm doing this for Krishna, to please Krishna, then you're on a transcendental platform. There's no question of any klesha. Krishna protects you. Your mind is on Krishna. Now, it doesn't mean you're not aware, if you get disease or something attacks you. But it doesn't impact your consciousness nearly like the ordinary conditioned soul. And if you're really absorbed in like samadhi, like Prahlad or Haridas Thakur, you don't even feel it. And Prabhupada, I mentioned this recently. Prabhupada gave the example of all people Stalin, who was having an operation on his stomach. And the reason why he didn't want to be anesthetized is that he was afraid of being assassinated. But still, he had this operation without, he had to, he was able to, he was able to tolerate. So Prabhupada, he said, well, his mind was elsewhere, he must have been, whatever. But even on the material plane, we find this sometimes. In the football field or on the war field, even if you get injured, if you're in the heat of the battle or the game, you won't notice it until, there's a break in the action and suddenly you realize, oh, I'm shot. If it's not super serious. So the point is the mind can transcend the body, even on the material plane. What to speak of in Krishna consciousness. Now, I wanted to bring up some idea that came to me when I was chanting japa. And that is how, we keep coming, notice how we keep coming back to the Hare Krishna mantra in our sadhana? It's like everything is accompanied by the holy name. All right, let's have a festival, and most of the festival where devotees really get enlivened is the chanting. So that's really central. The chanting of this mantra, the chanting of a holy name is central to our sadhana, obviously. And So, but we read about, like this morning I was chanting this Namashtika, which I highly recommend. There's so many beautiful verses there. And what part of what's wonderful about it is getting an insight into how the great acharyas experience the holy name. Just like many devotees, they know this verse or they know of this verse. But Rupa Goswami says, Tunde Tanda Manira Timbatanateta Davalida. It's an extraordinary verse, where it's in the Vidagdha Madhava and quoted twice in the first chapter on Lila. And he says, I don't know how much nectar these two syllables, Krishna, have produced. When I chant them, I want to have, they dance within my mouth, I want to have millions of mouths. When I enter the ears, they seem to, expand. I want to have millions of ears. And then when they enter the courtyard of the heart, they completely take over my consciousness, my senses become inert, my mind becomes fixed on Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya heard this verse, he started dancing and, and going into ecstasy. Same with Haridas Thakur. So, so we're chanting the same mantra, but I don't, have the same reaction to it. I mean, it's nectar, but it's not like that. So what's the difference? Well, the difference, obviously, is in the state of purity. The state of purity. And if one is a pure devotee of Krishna, meaning without the slightest tinge of any other desire, and having all those symptoms, not wasting time, great eagerness to chant, these are symptoms, to chant the holy name, or the qualities of Krishna, being completely tolerant, like the example that's Parikit. Just imagine what kind of steadiness of mind that takes. First of all, he's the emperor of the world. Then he gets this news that he's been cursed to die in 7 days, and what does he do? Does he build a fortress and tell every snake charmer in the kingdom to come and to surround the palace, or there's some snake comes? No, he doesn't do anything like that. He accepts it. He accepts it as the will of Krishna, providence. Okay, and he gives up the kingdom, which showed that he was never attached to it in the first place. And he sits on the bank, and that's not a bank of the Ganges, waiting for time to pass just to see what and all of these incredible personalities come, and finally Shukadeva Goswami comes and begins speaking the Bhagavatam. Doesn't eat anything, doesn't drink anything, and doesn't sleep. Conceivable for 7 days, but he's drinking. He's drinking the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam Masamalayam. That's literally an injunction for us to drink. This verse. Drink the Bhagavatam and become a rasika. Rasika has two meanings. It means one who can relish the rasa of bhakti, and one who drinks liquid. Rasa is also liquid. So it's wonderful. So he's drinking that, and he says periodically, I'm not thirsty, I'm not tired. Just go on, speaking. He's he's nourished by that sound vibration. Now this is beyond tolerance. Tolerance is really, tolerance means you feel it, but you're able to tolerate it, right? And of course, at a certain level, at a certain point, you're not tolerating anymore because you're not feeling it. You're not really feeling it. But just the presence of mind, that's way up here. So to have that absorption, every syllable he's drinking in from the Shukadeva Goswami, he's getting enlivened, And as Prabhu loves to point out, especially in the first canto at the beginning, he heard the Bhagavatam from the first syllable to the last syllable. The 10th canto is after, the first 9 cantos, you're completely convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all these things. But that doesn't mean that the 8th canto, 9th canto weren't also nectar for him. We've heard, Lord Chaitanya loved to hear the 4th canto, Dhruva Maharaj, the whole Bhagavatam. It was all nectar, because it's all related to Krishna, directly related to Krishna. So, the realization I got, if it is a realization, it's kind of coming back to something that's, we hear all the time, but you don't, is that if we can just hear, beginning with, okay, there's so many ideas about the whole, if we could just hear those 32 syllables nicely, that's the foundation upon which we build, further advancement in Krishna consciousness. And what is stopping us? Why is the mind why is the mind fighting the holy name? It's because of all the other things that we did, that we're not doing or not doing, to bring us to that stage. why is it, devotees, we've all been out on Harinam, basically, and you can go out there and stay enlivened pretty much for a few hours, chanting, and hearing. And part of it is that you're giving. There's that element of giving the holy name. Even if you're not fully aware of it, you're getting more mercy from Lord Chaitanya. And part of that mercy is, you're giving my holy name out. And how does the mercy manifest? More attraction for the holy name, more ability to concentrate, take shelter. This word is shelter here. Taking shelter begins with the total focus. You can imagine the shelter. You're out in the ocean here. This is a good analogy because we're right here. And you go out on a ship, maybe it's a cruise ship or whatever it is. Suddenly there's some emergency, and the ship starts sinking. And so now you're in a lifeboat, and the lifeboat starts sinking, or whatever, and then the helicopter comes, and you're pulling down the thing. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about that thing coming down there. You're totally focused, right? And when it comes down, you hold on to it, you put the harness on, whatever it is, and you're not thinking about anything else. You're so thankful, and you think, you're taking shelter, you may be crying or whatever. I'm saved. That's exactly how we should feel in this material world. How many chapters are there? How many verses are the Bhagavatam describing the difficulties in this world as an ocean or as a forest fire, both places of complete helplessness, where you have to rely on a superior source of safety, namely Krishna's lotus feet, right? So that's meant to make us eager to focus our mind and take full shelter of everything related to Krishna, beginning with the holy name. So that I was just trying to quiet the mind and just hear those syllables. That's the beginning of the whole thing, and to feel as Lord Chaitanya says in the first verse, just like bathing the consciousness, soothing, bathing moonlight, Nam Ananda Rupam Marari. Sanatana Goswami says in this wonderful verse near the beginning of Brihad Bhagavatam, Jayati Jayati Nam Ananda Rupam Marari. All glories to the holy name of Murari, Krishna, which is the very form of bliss. This is what he's feeling and experiencing. Just by chanting, he's experiencing unending, ever-increasing happiness. So that's why they didn't even care about a home or clothes or practically eating or sleeping. Just imagine. Just try to, we live in this world, an ordinary life, and it's not an ocean of bliss. There's just so many difficulties trying to maintain, get a little happiness, get married, this and that. But it's like unending kind of anxiety and trouble and working hard, and then a little happiness you get, sex life, whatever, eat children. But then it's mostly not like that. So that's material life, ending in death. But spiritual life is getting to the point of always having the source of your happiness completely at hand. Chanting or even just thinking of Krishna. Imagine if you could, just I think of Krishna and I could just be completely happy. Why stop? Who's stopping you? We are stopping ourselves. That's what Krishna consciousness means. That's what the great devotees experience. This idea of love and separation, that's just increasing the intensity of the emotion and the absorption. That's why that's the ideal in Gaudiya Vaishnava, is the separation. Why? Because you're never thinking of your beloved more intensely and deeply than when he's separated. The love is there. You're remembering. It only works when there's also has been a meeting, and then the separation increases the longing and the desire to be with the beloved and to see it, all the experience, and so. There's no question of thinking anything else. That's just absorption. And Krishna's responding. Even we hear from the Lalita Madhava and other Brihad Bhagavatam, I think it's also there, how Krishna is thinking of the gopis in the same intense way that they're thinking of him. Right in the Gita, he responds reciprocally, exactly. He's lamenting so much. I think it's Lalita Madhava, I'm mixing these up too. Where he's so much disturbed by separation, just like we read about the gopis, they're lying on the ground, falling on the ground. Hansadutta. The Hansadutta means the swan message, swan letter, a swan messenger. And Lalita sees the swan, Radharani is fainted on the banks of the Yamuna, and in separation, and the devotees trying to, encourage her, and